Hello.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Lightbox. Well, welcome to Disney Television Animation Presents Animation Amphibia Season 3 Q&A with Matt Brawley. My name is Kyle Boyd. I'm an artist manager here at Disney Television Animation, and I'd like to introduce our panelists. First, we have Matt Brawley, our creator and executive producer on Amphibia.
Hey, guys.
Previously storyboard artist and director on Gravity Falls, director on Big City Greens, storyboard artist Steven Universe, and a storyboard artist on Turbo. And we have Roxann Cole, who is a director on Amphibia. Welcome, Roxann. We also have Joe Johnston, who's also a director on Amphibia, previously a storyboard artist on Fish Hooks, storyboard artist and co-EP or co-executive producer on Steven Universe, and co-director on Steven Universe the movie. Welcome, Joe.
Hello, I'm here, but you can't see me.
Welcome, Joe. Great picture. Also, we have Jessica Chandra, who is associate producer on Amphibia. So welcome, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. Sort of to start us off, do each of you want to sort of tell us how you got into animation and maybe like why animation?
I'll go first and I'll popcorn it to the next person, if that sounds good. I mean, I got into animation ever since in high school. A guy from Pixar came, gave a talk. It was like one of those job fair kind of career day things. And he was so cool. He drew like Lumiere on the chalkboard and he was like, wow, you can get paid to do this. I couldn't believe it. After that, I started taking figure drawing classes at the local community college. I went to CalArts for character animation. I spent all 4 years there. And afterwards, I started working at DreamWorks, got into storyboarding, which I love it. And then eventually landed in TV. And then, you know, started pitching shows, got a show off the ground. Here we are, bam! But basically, you know, I love animation. I'm so happy to be here and I can't wait to hear from everyone else. Next up, Jess Chandra, please.
Hello. I actually got into animation by accident. I started off in live action, and in college in my senior year, I was applying for internship at the Nickelodeon live action studio, but my resume accidentally ended up in the animation side, and they contacted me for an internship, and I was like, animation, where? They're like, oh, our studio is in Burbank. I'm like, sure. But ever since then, I fell in love with it, love animation. I was at Nickelodeon for a bit, and then came over at TVA for Tangled the series, and then on Amphibia now. And I'm gonna hand it over to Roxann.
Okay, I'll try to not stutter too much. I got started in animation after I found out animation was a thing you could do in like 2013, after I came back from teaching English abroad. And then I started going to school for it, and then I managed to land a job doing character design on Pickle and Peanut at Disney TV. And I started in character design, and I thought I would stay in character design. And then a friend asked me if I'd be interested in doing storyboards. And I was like, sure, I'll do storyboards. And then it ended up working out. And then turns out storyboarding is a much better fit for me. And then I ultimately, in the end, I don't know how, Matt, you found my work. I think I drew Sprig Weird one time, and then you reached out to me. And then ultimately ended up on Amphibia.
Pass to Joe.
Yeah.
Joe.
So my path into animation is actually very similar to Matt's.
We were roommates. We were roommates in college.
But before that, way back in 2004, Matt and I both went to a program called the California Summer School for the Arts, which was a high school program. It's still going. It's called InterSpark now. CISA InterSpark is one of those. And it's a high school statewide program for students to come and who excel at the arts and really focus on a discipline. And we both chose animation, and we actually met there way back then. And then from there, it was a same sort of path life drawing and Cal Arts and working, and then eventually Matt made his show and I got to join him.
And before that, Joe actually put my work in front of the Steven Universe crew, and that's the reason why I got to come and work on Steven for a little bit. So we're kind of tightly connected, Joe and I.
Yes.
Do you want to mention maybe some other alumni from CISA?
Ooh, is this a quiz? I was like, who? Alex Hirsch?
Yeah.
Joe Pitt, for sure. Joe Pitt. Michael Herrera, actually. I do feel like this is a quiz.
I'm
Joe,
putting you on the spot. I'm sorry.
Yeah, dude, I was like,
Lindsay Olivares.
Lindsay Olivares, art director of Mitchell's. Yeah.
Mitchell's. She was in our year.
Yeah, she was in our year, and she made this awesome painted film about a goldfish. Do you remember that, Joe? It was like paint. Oh,
yeah.
She was amazing. Painted. Yeah, she was incredible.
Yeah, it's a great
Hurts
program.
a little bit.
Good job. Well, do you want to start off answering some questions from our audience?
Let's do it.
Cool. So I have first one is Cassie. What are some challenges in balancing the show's tone, especially after the season 2 finale?
Joe, do you have any thoughts on this? I feel like, and Roxann, you guys have done such an amazing job balancing tone, and it's a tricky thing.
Well, I think on a show like this, it's so much fun when the show opens up. The first season, it's all takes place mostly in Wartwood, and then season 2 is this big caravan trip all the way to Newtopia and meeting all these new characters. And so it's really just the show evolving into a new thing, and the tone just kind of marches along with you as you go. And the writing team and the storyboard teams on our crew have been so wonderful and so amazing that we've all just been on this journey together, and it's been so easy as far as for me. Yeah.
Very cool.
Roxann, any thoughts?
Yeah.
I mean, I came on for season 3, so like my experience mostly has to do with how I got to watch the tone evolve from the beginning of season 3 to the end of season 3, which it was a lot of fun to kind of like toe that line of when are we getting into plot, when are we getting into more episodic, just fun moments, and there's plenty of both. And I don't know, it just these characters are really easy to kind of like have both moments because they're really complex characters. Even though they're really fun and they can be really goofy at times, they're still really complex. They have a lot of flaws, so you can really delve into the lightheartedness of who they are as well as what makes them complicated and easy to relate to.
I remember Roxann, when you came on, you of course hadn't seen season 2 because it hadn't aired, and I remember you were like, cool, I'll catch up, and then you were in the chat being like, Anne turns blue, I don't know what's going on, you know what I mean? It was such like a big jump, but it was so fun to see you as an outsider come in and like watch all the animatics and learn all that stuff in real time.
I remember watching one of the one of the new episodes that was boarded, and I was just like, what happened? Like I only saw season 1, and I was like, what's happened since season 1? Because at that point season 2 hadn't really, at least none of the heavier parts of season 2 hadn't come out yet. So like I had no idea where it was heading. I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna have more frogs in Frogland and having fun frog times, and then no, that's not what happened. So
yeah. Hey, also Jess. So Jess, can you tell us actually a little bit like about what you do? Because I was gonna ask you, like from a production point of view, what was it like to see the show's tone shift?
Oh, Matt doesn't know what I do now.
No. I mean, it's for everybody else.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because like you said, it has gotten a lot more complex in season 2. We travel to all new cities, every show, every episode. So we have to bolster our design team, and we added more in the schedule to accomplish Matt's vision. And it was challenging at times, but everybody got so excited because they knew we're ultimately gonna make something really good. So the struggle was all worth it. But yeah, definitely adjustment needed to be made.
We have another question from the audience. It's from Joshua, for our directors as well. Favorite episode you've directed And more specifically, what was your favorite scene to direct? If there's something you can share from season 3.
Very specific. Very
Or season
specific
2.
scene.
Season
Or
2, season 3. Yeah,
season
yeah.
2.
I guess, Roxann, if you're going to mention a season 3, just be general.
Yeah.
Very vague.
Go for it. Joe, Roxann, anyone?
I mean, okay, go ahead, Joe.
One of my favorite episodes from season 2 is Bessie and Michelangelo. It was such a fun, sweet little episode, and Danny Ducker and Eddie did such an amazing job boarding that episode, and the drawings were just so funny. It was so funny to just watch that episode come together. I like those like sweet little contained episodes the most, I think.
Very
Do you
cool.
hear the meep in your sleep still, Joe? Meep. From
Yes.
Michelangelo.
I have another question. That's a good one from Pablo. I'm interested in how Amphibia explores loss. We see the thought of loss. Sprig makes Anne react at the end of season 2. I'm giving things away if no one's seen season 2. I am excited to see how Anne feels after losing Marcy, and I wonder how she will change. Will there be any exploration of that in season 3?
So,
a whole slew of spoilers.
yeah. So broadly, I would say just that, like, you know, loss is one of the many feelings that is part of this cocktail called life. And that, like, you know, it shows up in the show because it is part of your life and it will be something that everybody deals with. So these bad things or these intense things that the characters go through, you know what I mean? Like, that's just us trying to create believable characters and believable scenarios. You know what I mean? Like, there's a running theme in Amphibia of kind of like, you know, the price is paid, or, you know, every dream costs something. And I think that with a through line like that, like it is going to get a little heavy at times. And for me, I think that kids, you know, and I know we all feel this way, like they're really smart and they love to see these things explored, because, like, you know, it's not just all rainbows and sunshine and bubblegum, but you want the full spectrum of the human experience, you know what I mean, in the show.
Very cool. Anyone else? Jess, you want to any thoughts?
No, yeah, I agree. I love that. Even when I watched the storyboards and read the script, I was like, but why, Matt? Why? But it is definitely.
You know why? It's, you know.
Yeah, I was like, Matt, no. Don't do
Matt,
it.
no.
But like what Matt says, it's part of it. It's part of life. And I think it's going to be interesting to see in this coming season how this is going to affect all the characters and how they deal with it.
I think being 13 is a tumultuous age, and it's all about change when you're that age. Change and loss can come with that. And a big part of this show is sort of exploring how friendships change at this age. And that's a big part of it.
Cool. Roxann, you have anything to add to that?
I'm trying to be real careful because I know more about season 3 than anything else. So like, but I've already forgotten the question. So
discussing loss in the show.
I mean, I guess the way I interpreted it a lot more is that it is about, there's a lot about loss in this show, but it's also largely about change, and like, so like what comes with that, because like, you know, they're all changing, they're evolving as characters, like they're growing up, you know. So like even Anne from season 1 to season 2, she's become a completely different character, and you know, and they're gonna change even more in season 3. So
cool. Yeah, thank you. We have another question from Alexis. For all of you, what do you love most about your role on the show?
I'll start. I really love, you know, I've mentioned this before, and when you're in a kind of manager role, it's less about like what I can do and sort of what I can inspire others to do. So there's nothing more satisfying to me than seeing everybody step up to the plate and do their best work, you know, because they're motivated. And, you know, because we have a rapport. And so that's extremely satisfying for me. Jess?
Yeah, same. I think my favorite part is the people. Being in production, you actually get to deal with literally everyone from the writers to the board artists to the designers, the editor, the post team. You really see it throughout rather than, sometimes when you're just the designers, maybe you're close with the design team or the storyboard with the storyboard. But in production, we literally touch every step of the way. And it's very exciting to see how an episode progressed from piece of paper that you read, and then a few months later, oh, now it's animated color. It still gets me every time. So I think that's my favorite part, the people.
Roxann?
Roxann, yeah.
I think like for me, like, I mean, this is my first time directing was on this show. And I think like what I found that I really enjoyed doing was, well, working with everyone. Like you work with a lot more people when you get into a supervisory role. You talk to a lot more people. Like I was way more in contact with production than I'd ever been just in my previous roles, which I really enjoyed. And I just like seeing everything kind of come together and like all the parts of the process, seeing where it starts and where it ends and just how big of a difference that makes.
Cool, Joe?
To piggyback on what Jess said, for me too, it's been about the people I've been able to meet and get to know and work with these past years, and especially the last year and a half. We were really lucky as a crew to be so tight knit before lockdown happened and we all went home, because that camaraderie and that love between everybody has really continued, even though we are all apart. And it's also made it so that people who are new to the crew, like Roxann and like a bunch of people, it's made it, I think, a warm place for them to join as well, to join us. So it's been really nice. It's been really nice.
Hey, Roxann, since it's your first time directing, what did you think?
I mean, I felt really lucky that this was my first time directing was on this show, because it was such a well-oiled machine. Like it was like I couldn't have asked for a better first time experience doing any kind of job.
That's very nice of you. You killed it, crushed it. Roxann.
Tomorrow,
fantastic.
Roxann is gonna quit animation entirely.
No.
No more.
Very good. Another question from CD. It's kind of a fun one. How do you decide what scenes need more budget or work or action as opposed to others? How do you balance action and comedy?
Joe or Roxann, this is a great question for you guys because I feel like that's a lot of your day to day when you get the script.
We're talking like actual budget, how we allocate.
No, but I think in terms of where you put your resources being people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's you can tell in the script, when we get the script, what scenes are going to be big scenes. There was an infamous line in the script for True Colors that I think went fighting, they are all fighting. And that was like, oh, I looked at that, saw that in the script and like, oh, that's a big thing. We're gonna need some top people on that. So you can plan ahead and you can kind of see it coming, and you can kind of just roll with the punches. So for that scene, I think Jen Strickland ended up storyboarding. That was the scene of everybody fighting in the throne room against all the robots before Anne turns blue.
Do you, my question, do you, for your board artists, you cast them into certain roles in their episodes? Like if someone's really good at comedy, someone's good at musical sequences or, action.
You try to, yeah. But you also want to make sure that your teammates are doing scenes or writing or drawing characters that they love to write and draw. So oftentimes I would be picking out sections that I knew that the storyboard artist would be able to really bring their own sort of take to it and their own heart to it. And then also, yeah, if it's a big action scene and if someone did the action scene in the previous episode, yeah, maybe they want to take a break on the next episode and not do the action scene.
Yeah. Roxann, you have anything to add to that?
I mean, he said pretty much everything I probably would have said. But yeah, like, you know, we try our best to cast. Sometimes you can't because you got 2 board artists on an episode. So like they get half the episode each, and there's not as enough board artists to cast like super accurately to like, oh yeah, this guy's real good at like these emotional scenes, but maybe the whole episode's emotional, so then you got to cast both of them as both board artists as the emotional board artist. Or sometimes this episode could be entirely action, and that's always a lot of fun. It's a lot of work to do a lot of action, but it is also really fun. But yeah.
And sometimes you guys, the directors, will take some pages. Like I've seen you both do that. Do you have a process when you take the pages yourself?
I'll take sections. So there were a few episodes that I didn't take a section, and those were ones where I was like, if I took a section, it might ruin the flow for the board artists, because sometimes there's like a really nice flow. Like usually that tends to be episodes that aren't as like episodic. So like they're not primarily just gags. They tend to be a little bit more plot based. Those ones can be a little bit tougher to take a section, but usually I take a section, especially on the heavy episodes where I'm like, okay, like either everyone's really burned out because, you know, working from home is tough for a lot of people. And so I'll take a section that maybe give the board artist a little bit of a break on one of the more challenging parts, or maybe one of the parts that nobody's excited to do. And so I'll be like, I'll do it.
That's good of you.
Yeah. There's been a lot of questions about like inspiration and like what inspires you in certain episodes or the series in general. Like you maybe want to talk about some of the inspirations for some of the episodes or writing or just the series in general.
Yeah, I think that, you know, we all like have different inspirations, and like I think it'd be fun to like hear, like, you know, for me, obviously I love Studio Ghibli films and Legend of Zelda and stuff, but I'd love to hear from you guys about like, you know, what are your kind of creative like night lights, you know what I mean? Like, what do you always look to when you're like, oh, that's the kind of content I want to make? Like, Jess, you included.
Yeah.
I think for me, Matt probably knows this, I honestly love a lot of things. We always talk about movies that came out and I'm like, I love it. And then he's like, no, I hate that movie. Oh, really?
Yeah, you're like a huge like Jurassic Park fan, right? And Star Wars.
I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan, yes, and Star Wars. And honestly, I can't do horrors, but I love a lot of like magical worlds. So that's why Amphibia is very special, because it takes you away and then you meet all these characters and their way of living, which makes sense. But it's in the frog world, and that's what I love about it. So I love those kind of like fantasy world. How about you guys? How about Roxann and Joe?
I guess like specifically for like, I think one thing that's a struggle, especially now during lockdown, is inspiration when you're stuck at home. And honestly, it's been seeing the crews work. Like whenever like we have a pitch or the boards come back, or when an episode comes back, it's really inspiring to look at and to see everyone's hard work. It's been rough being away from the servers and not being able to spy on everyone's work that's getting turned in. Because I used to really love staring at the design server.
Yeah, we used to like pin designs up and like share them more, and that's something in quarantine that's been just very hard to do. And like even I myself, I sort of forgot that that's how you guys, that's where you get energy. So like, you know, I think a little bit in quarantine, I compartmentalized too many parts of the process. And when you guys expressed like, oh, we want to join each other's rough pitches again, I was like, oh yeah, of course you do. Like you want to get inspired by the work of your peers. And so it's like, yeah, it's incredibly important for what we do.
My question, you know, as artists, you know, growing up, you know, your hobby essentially is drawing or storytelling or just art. You know, it's essentially your hobby. At a certain point in your career, you know, your hobby becomes your career.
Yeah.
Do you do anything on the side that is very different from your day-to-day?
Are you asking us if we draw for fun anymore?
Well, I mean, like, well, that and like, because some people don't. I mean, some people, you know, try and do something, even like Andreas Deja or Learn from Milk Call to do wire sculptures. Like, it's so creative, but like, it's very different, you know. So like, what are your wire sculptures,
guys? Roxann?
Well, during work from home, I've done a whole lot less than I used to when I was going into the office, because you're just home all the time and you're like, okay, work is my house. So it's kind of hard to separate the two things sometimes, but you know, I don't actually, like, growing up, I did draw a lot, and but like all of my hobbies had to do with art. I was always like either drawing or I was writing stuff or reading books too. So like, I'm pretty boring as far as my hobbies go. They're pretty standard. Like, and most of the stuff that I like doing that I used to do that before pre-COVID was like traveling. I like traveling, going to like hiking and stuff, because that's where I would draw inspiration from. Like, I think that's probably been one of the harder things lately, is like having to find places closer by that gave me that same like separation from like my daily life.
Yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah. So, because like I remember I went to New Zealand and went for a week or two, like I guess now it would be like 2.5 years ago.
I was gonna say, like, when?
And that was like really energizing. Yeah. So
we need that though. We need like new experiences to inform like our stories and our, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's important.
Yeah.
It's just seeing new places, and like, even if it's just like somewhere in the area too. I'm just not very good at finding places to go see here for some reason. I'm like, how do you find something fun to do in your city? Like,
downtown Burbank.
There you go.
Hoppin' place.
The mall, go to a movie.
Yeah. Joe, how about you? What are your hobbies?
Round 1.
Oh, yeah, round 1 just opened.
Yeah.
Recently, I've been doing some like miniature building.
Ooh.
So I've been doing some like little fantasy. I got inspired by some YouTube watching recently.
Like Warhammer, or you mean like
not like little fantasy castle houses things.
Not like little train sets though, or something.
No, not quite. Not there yet. I don't have any space for like, it's got to be small. And there's no space for anything big.
Not to pick your brain a little bit, but do you like making little stuff because you're like looking over it and you're like, I'm a god, or like what is it about like the miniatures that?
No, I've always been very crafty. Like I did a lot of like origami when I was a kid, and like I used to build things out of paper a lot. And so like I always kind of come back to that sometimes. It's kind of like that Lego connects sort of itch in your brain. And so, but this one involves like painting also, so it's a little artistic on the same.
That's so cool. I mean, Steve Wolfhard, he was our post director, and he was into miniatures, and he'd like airbrush like the tiniest little mailbox. He showed you that stuff, right?
Yeah, I've seen some of it. Yeah,
it was just like, that is a tiny mailbox. Yeah.
Jessica,
I would have to say, like, from my perspective, since I don't draw, I used to watch cartoon as like, oh, this is such a fun, lighthearted, enjoyable animation. And then once you started working in the industry, now when I watch TV animated, I think about, oh my God, that episode must cost a lot of money, or like that episode sounds like it's gonna be a pain to break down, or who's in the credit, who boarded it. So you're like looking at it very differently for sure.
It's true. Like animated stuff, for like, I have the same feeling, Jess, where I'm like, time to watch Luca, and then it's like, oh no, it's like work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just like,
oh, the hair animation's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely pick things apart now. Well, what about you, Matt?
No hobbies, Kyle. Not a one. And it's so funny because, well, like video games, sure, and like, you know,
that's good.
Yeah, but like honestly, like, and it's so funny because I get asked this a lot, like, you do anything on the side? And I'm like, what? Like, what on the side? Like, what do you mean? Like, when? Yeah, like, what are you talking about? But like, you know, again, it's a tricky thing because like when your vocation, when your hobby becomes your job, you gotta kind of remind yourself why you love it so much. And like, it's one of those things. I would love to fall in love with drawing again, because I remember when I was a kid, I would just draw dragons and Dragon Ball Z characters and robots. And I would just like, oh my God, I loved the simple mechanical action of making the strokes and creating the drawings. And now, you've got that little gremlin on your shoulder that's like, is this even good enough? When you're drawing it, like, you know what I mean? Do I even post this? And like, I would love to get to a place where like, that doesn't matter to me so much. But like, I will say that like, I've never been the kind of person who keeps like a sketchbook. I'm not Guillermo del Toro, you know what I mean? Like, I'd love to be that kind of person, but I'm not. I draw best when I know it's free and it's easy and it's like, nobody's judging it like on a napkin or something, you know what I mean?
Have you always been like a that is a thing, but like sketchbook person?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I tried to be, like I even carried one around and it was like empty, you know what I mean? Just to like look like I was one of the, you know what I mean?
You're an artist.
Yeah, but really I did my best work when it wasn't like that, Yeah.
Cool. Jess, do you want to kind of talk about, we keep getting a couple questions about like sort of length of time, like, so you want to kind of, meaning how long it takes to do some episodes and board them and whatnot. You want to talk about sort of like the schedule and kind of dig into that a little bit?
Sure. I guess every show is slightly different. For us, we're an 11 minutes per episode kind of structure. So for our board team, they have 4 weeks to board an 11 minutes, and it's ideally not nowhere near enough. It could have been double the time.
Yeah,
it's never
is.
enough.
Never is.
But somehow these guys always pull it off and did amazing job. I'm still excited to go to any board pitches every episode. For designs, we also have 4 weeks. So we have like 2 weeks for black and white, and then we have 2 weeks for color. Again, nowhere near enough. It's never enough. There's always more to do. But these guys are great. We also have about 2 weeks of editorial time for the directors and the editor. We also have writing in the beginning of it, which is, I would say, what is it, Matt? Like 4 weeks total? Or
I feel like writing, yeah, it's tricky. I think writing is like 5 or 6 weeks, dude. Like I think it's I think it was stacked.
Like from the very beginning, right? Until
from like
final.
I think so, yeah. But I think like the big question everyone wants to know is like, how long does it take to animate? Like, you know what I mean? Like when we send it.
Right. Well, after we send in, we don't animate in-house. So we do ship our animation over to Korea, and they have 18 weeks per 11 minutes. So it will go out in the Ethernet for 18 weeks and then come back to us after that. And it's like first all animated in color, which is great. But for in general, just our entire season take about a year to produce.
Yeah, it's
a long time.
We produce them sort of like, and every show is different, but we produce them sort of stacked a little bit so that like, again, you're not experiencing, a year gap between airing. Well, sometimes you do, but like we're doing them sort of overlapping a little bit, the seasons,
Yeah.
And do you do your episodes in order, like a production?
Yeah, we do. I mean, season
for the
one,
most part, yeah.
Season one
of episode, I mean.
Yeah, we do. Occasionally we have like something goes wrong and an episode needs to get rearranged. We do switch
special
things
holidays episodes.
Holiday episode because like of when it needs to air and deliver and stuff. So sometimes it does like get a little messed up, but generally we're doing it in chronological order.
That's great. Some shows do, some shows don't.
Yeah, it depends. Every show is so different, and that's the crazy thing. Jess will tell you, every production is different. Every single time it is somewhat different, whether they use a studio in South Korea, whether or not it's an asset-based show, like either it's hand-drawn on paper, like our show, or it's asset-based, like something like Hilda, like, you know what I mean, like Mercury, or whether it's a script-driven show or a board-driven show. It's really, there's so many different combinations that you can do that every show is different.
I have a good question from Joshua. Out of all the roles, which role do you think goes underappreciated or doesn't get enough attention?
Amazing question. I hope everyone has a different answer.
Yeah. Maybe Roxann, you want to start?
Yeah, hit it.
That's a good question.
I mean, I think like as far as like outside of the show, like production seems to get like glossed over a lot, like how important
True.
production is
True.
in making a show, just because like their work doesn't necessarily translate immediately onto the screen. Like, I mean, you don't see like their drawings on the screen or anything like that, but like a show wouldn't get made without production staff. And like as a director, you know, even more how important production is to just get the job done.
Like we all, like the artists, oh, we have terrible time management. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows the artists,
Yes,
like
like, I
we're
know.
all over the place. And if it weren't for production, there would be just no show. How about you, Joe? What do you think?
I mean, I have nothing to add to that. That's,
No.
I mean, it's exactly the truth. And that's what I was going to say. It's especially the last year and a half, we would be nowhere.
Yeah.
Without the amazing production staff that we have. Yeah.
Jess,
Good.
you're on production. What do you think?
Yeah, I
He's
mean,
like, yes.
I would say in most cases, yes. The production team sometimes is very underappreciated because there's no physical result of what we
Right.
do. But I'm very grateful on this show. Everyone's actually very appreciative of us. You know, our PAs are the bone of the whole show. They stay late on Friday night shipping an episode until, especially work from home with the internet struggle. It's like 2 hours of just uploading something, and they stayed up, you know, so without them it doesn't happen. But on this show, yeah, we're actually very appreciated, and I'm very lucky. We're very lucky. Even at some point, the design team, where it was basically the whole crew, put together like a thank you card and a drawing of a production team
was
on the
very
couch
sweet.
singing karaoke with Matt.
It was very
It's the sweetest
sweet.
thing ever. So
was the
no,
sweetest
everyone's great. And our art directors always very appreciative of us. They're very kind to work with. So I don't know on our show specifically. I would say production team maybe usually, but I'm pretty grateful on this show. We're seen.
Yeah, I think just to add on, like in terms of, you know, generally it feels like the two positions I always see kind of overlooked is the revisionists, the conform revisionists especially are the ones who are really, you know, you've got these amazing board artists, but there's only so much they can do. And so it's really this crack team of revisionists who are kind of like spackling everything, you know what I mean, and getting it ship ready. And they do so much work and it's often unrecognized, you know what I mean? So those teams are always just, they're really, really doing a lot of work. And then the other position that is always kind of overlooked is color stylist.
Totally.
Historically underpaid because it has a origins in ink and paint, you know, Kyle, like that's where like, yeah, that all comes from. You know, it's the kind of position that once again, that person is doing a lot of heavy lifting and their taste, we're relying on them for a lot of, you know, the characters and how they look on the backgrounds and props, how those look on the backgrounds and effects, you know, laser blasts, fire that glows, all of that, these stars in the background, you know what I mean? This kind of work really is down to the color stylist. And that's a position I often don't see mentioned very much.
Yeah, it's true.
And you know who else that I think not a lot of people know, there's a position called the checker. And they're
the checker,
like
the caboose, as I call them.
The end of the line, at the very last line, and they catch everything. And not a lot of people is aware of that.
You should describe, well, because Roxann and Joe deal directly with the checker, and like it is just the kinds of questions that like there was rain in the shot right before this. Do you want rain in this shot? You know what I mean? It's a number of questions. The checker, and you've seen them actually credited sometimes as something called the continuity editor. Sometimes that's what they opt to call them, which is so funny because like I've seen people be like, well, the continuity editor didn't do their job very well because this story has continuity problems. Like actually, that's not what they do. They're continuity, like almost continuity across the boards. You know what I mean? Like rain effects. You know what I mean? Do you want lights on, lights off for these scenes? Like, and Joe and Roxann had a very close relationship with our checker because she's always sending questions to them.
Yeah, it'll be like a drawing of a tiny toad in the background holding a basket, and she'll be like, "Do we design this tiny basket?" No one caught.
What? No, what? Yeah. What
Or
were you gonna say, Roxann? Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say like how swords come up a lot, and like you know because. Just because it's like, you know, in boards, you sometimes forget to draw the right number of props in every scene. and you don't even notice it. It's like becomes a blind spot for you. Like I didn't notice it, and then the checker comes in and I get an email being like, hey, why aren't they holding this thing anymore? And I'm like, wait, what thing? And then I realized that they haven't been, the thing that we had them have at the very beginning of the episode, they haven't had it for like the majority of the episode. And now you have to draw it all in. And it's like,
it takes a village.
Little things. It's like the Starbucks cup, right? That in like Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah.
To make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Oh, and we've had our own Starbucks cups, haven't we? Okay, great.
Let me see if I can have another question for you. This is from Catherine. What is it like balancing episodic comedy and story arcs? Given that Amphibia is supposed to be a children's show, I imagine there's a lot of work when it comes to dealing with heavy topics, but it also makes sure it's approachable.
Yes, that's an amazing question. I'll take this one. Basically, this is an episodic show with continuity layered underneath it. So at the end of the day, this was designed to be an episodic show, meaning that you can drop into any adventure, any episode, and enjoy it. Obviously, as we've progressed, season 1, season 2, season 3, the amount of continuity has increased, and you're going to be a little lost when you jump in. That's inevitable. But it's been very tricky, and probably one of the biggest challenges from the writing point of view is just we want self-contained stories, right? But we want to be respectful too of the long form story. And it's tricky, you know what I mean? Like sometimes we do it great. Sometimes we probably could have done it better. And I've learned so much kind of doing it. I think it's not the kind of thing I would probably attempt again, if I'm being completely honest. I think, but I was emboldened, honestly, by Steven Universe. You know what I mean? The idea, Steven struck such a wonderful balance of episodic comedy and also having overall lore that I felt really built over seasons and over episodes to a fever pitch. And I thought they did a wonderful job with that momentum. And I'm hopeful that we can do the same.
Very good. Is there, for all of you, is there a story that you haven't told yet that you've always wanted to tell? In general, like meaning like, is there a theme or like some sort of story point or an emotion or something? That is a
great question. Like almost like topics that we felt like we haven't really gotten into. Well, I don't know. I don't really know. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? I mean, it's kind of
a big loaded question though.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, there's always stuff. There will always be things. You know what I mean? Like I feel like in terms of the heavier topics, I've always wanted to tell a story about someone who was kind of stuck in the hospital, because like when I was a kid, I spent a lot of time there and I was kind of stuck, and like that's the kind of story that's been rolling around in my head for a long time. But like obviously that's not like the most commercial or kid friendly, but like that's the kind of thing that I'm like, oh yeah, it'd be great to do that someday. I know. Roxann, Joe, Jess, is there some story that you've always sort of wanted? Although this is kind of like, I'm like, I don't want to like, hear about your, like, I don't want to put your idea on display.
We're not trying to cry. Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Here's a story you're trying to tell, you're just giving it away.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts on that, or do you want to?
Is this a story for Amphibia?
I'm not sure. I think they just mean in general, like, because it's hard to answer that question about Amphibia because we haven't gotten all 3 seasons.
You haven't seen it all.
Yeah. So
what I would love to know about? I would love to see the story of Mrs. Boonchoy's childhood, because she, you know what I mean?
Okay.
That's fun.
Come to America, grew up as an immigrant, and raising a child in America as an immigrant. So that would be an interesting one.
I love that. Great.
We keep getting some questions about pitching. Do you want to talk about pitching, meaning storyboard pitches?
Oh yeah,
maybe talk about your process of pitching your boards and your team.
Yeah, I love pitching. I think it is one of the best parts about being a board artist, but everyone has different feelings about it. Some people they don't love like doing funny voices and kind of getting in front of everyone and putting your clown nose on. You know what I mean? So like I don't know, but I personally really like it. I've always really loved it. I think that there's nothing better than feeling the energy in the room when you're pitching a good board. I don't know, Roxann, Joe, what do you guys think?
Roxann, maybe you want to talk about pitching boards?
Well, pitching is not my favorite thing as far as pitching a storyboard goes, because like, I mean, Matt knows how much I loved recording Scratch, and I didn't. So like, because I'm not really, because like, I mean, I really enjoy creating the story, and like, I like people seeing what has been made, but that's probably why when I got into directing, I really enjoyed that, because I was more involved in like the animatic making process, which meant I didn't have to pitch anymore. Other than the recording Scratch, that was the only part that it was still kind of like that.
And for clarity, Scratch is when we don't have the actor. So Roxann has to go up to the mic and like pretend to be Hop Hop or pretend to be Sprig or whatever. And she says she hates it, but like, I loved it. She did a great job. It was really good.
Temporary voices.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was more of like the amount of psychic damage I had to take every time I heard myself. But everyone else didn't. I don't think anyone else had a problem with it. I was the only one who took damage.
Well, it's like when you hear yourself on the answering machine, you're like, that's not me.
No, it's like I even showed my sister the parts where I recorded myself. She's like, that doesn't sound like you. And it's like, oh, thank God. So.
Oh man, Joe.
What about Joe? You have any thoughts about pitching?
I really enjoy pitching. When you especially when you've had time.
You're great at it, Joe.
Yeah, Joe's really excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent
The voices and everything.
When you have time to prepare, it's always really rewarding. It's kind of putting on a little performance. And Matt
Joe has even queued up music. You know what I mean, to play underneath his pitch. That's next level stuff.
We would do that on Steven Universe a lot too. I mean, also we would have board artists who would write songs on guitars and sing, and I would this was like with Jeff Liu, I would pitch his boards while he would play his guitar and sing the song.
That is so cool. And on the computer, right? So you're tapping through.
Yeah, and the same
awesome.
with Rebecca Sugar. If she had a song for the episode we were working on, we would pitch it for her.
That's awesome.
She sang it. So that's always a lot of fun. And Matt and I come from when we were in school, we were doing this all on paper mostly, and we actually put it up on the wall, and we have to
with like a
point at it with a stick and get close, and everyone has to look and gather around. It was very fun.
That's tricky because and even actually in Steven early days, you guys, we were still pinning it up actually at the very early stages. And I remember because you're in a small room, but there's a lot of people in there, and you can't always see the boards because they're so small. So you really relied on the pitcher to communicate the scene almost verbally and with their body.
Yeah,
it's good stuff though.
We just have another minute. Anyone have any last minute thoughts or?
I mean, we're just excited for everyone to see the rest. So thanks for coming, everyone. Have a fun Lightbox and have a great week.
Enjoy your week, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Have a great.
Thank you for joining us.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.